What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So, as always, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Drop your comments with any thoughts you might have on this video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. Appreciate all of the support here on the page. Keep tuning in every single weekday. Today, I want to talk about Bleacher Report ranking the Cam Whitmore trade as one of the most lopsided deals of the NBA offseason. Then we'll chat about, is it possible to pull off another Whitmore-like move here this summer? Then we'll move on into 10th Man Tuesday, another edition where we break down one player on the Wizards or Go-Go fighting for more playing time. And lastly, of course, John Wall's retirement and John Wall's jersey retirement debate have sort of dominated Wizards Twitter, dominated some of the discussions here this summer. And John Wall himself has weighed in on that conversation. Want to chat about his comments just a little bit. Again, guys, appreciate all the support here on the page. And like I said, let's dive in to Cam Whitmore talk and Bleacher Report ranking that deal as one of the most lopsided trades of the NBA offseason. Remember, the Wizards only sent two second rounders to Houston, one in 2026, one in 2029, for Cam Whitmore's services. This article, while not failing to take a shot at the Wizards organization, calling it one of the NBA's most inept franchises, fair historically, I will say. Don't sleep on the Will Dawkins process. I think maybe league-wide, people still maybe sleeping just a little bit on what's going on here in DC. But Bleacher Report does really more focus on scolding Houston for this deal. They say essentially punting on a player with his potential with 2 years left on the rookie scale contract is just has to be viewed as a trade L for the Rockets. Now, in fairness to Houston, it has been reported or speculated that there was potentially other offers on the table, other calls about Cam Whitmore, but they wanted to send him to a place where they felt he would grow and thrive and be comfortable, of course, returning to his home area. And while that may be true, it also might be possible that the league sort of recognized that he was on the trading block. He wasn't really part of the Rockets' future plans. And sometimes when you see that happen, it can maybe lessen the value that other teams are willing to offer for a player. So you never know quite know exactly what was going down with those NBA front offices. But regardless, it's a huge win for the Wizards. And again, quite simply, for the reason the article states, to not give up a first rounder for a player of Cam Whitmore's, just with his potential. And you've seen on the court in the NBA in the action that he has gotten, what he might be able to turn into, I think is huge. And honestly, after Bilal Koulibaly's sort of maybe lackluster close to the Eurobasket tournament, I know it's a different stage, it's a different group of players he's working with, but you do get the sense that maybe there's a prime opportunity going into training camp, going into the season, that Cam Whitmore could maybe slide in and steal one of those starting spots, or at the very least, steal a whole bunch of minutes, in this lineup, in this rotation. Excited to see what the future holds for Cam Whitmore. Wonder if maybe it's possible to pull off another, you know, Cam Whitmore like deal here this offseason. What I mean by that is a low cost, high upside player that you could bring in. The one idea I've seen thrown out in that regard is about Bones Highland, who's currently with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Remember, started the career with Denver and the LA Clippers, really got his most playing time right out of the gates with the Nuggets, but then got shipped out of town after his second or in his second year there before that title run that they went on. Kind of had a breakdown with the coaching staff. Maybe some miscommunications on what his role and what his fit was with the team. Didn't really latch on with the Clippers, got traded to Atlanta, waived by them, and then signed with Minnesota last February. You got have to remember Denver, the Clippers, and the Timberwolves, all playoff teams with Denver and Minnesota, legitimate title contenders. The Clippers probably view themselves that way as well, but injuries have obviously derailed those hopes. But that can't always that's not always an easy spot for young players to kind of learn and grow and develop in the NBA. Like we're, similar situation, honestly, to Cam Whitmore, sort of just referenced that. And, you wonder if maybe it's just the right fit and more time on the court for Bones. He could sort of find his way in the league. And you wonder if maybe, of course, a team like Washington, where, you could rotate him in with Bub Carrington, maybe provide, solid minutes off the bench, run that kind of unit a little bit. If he could kind of, find his spot again in the NBA, sort of keep using those terms, and for the right price, not a first rounder by any stretch, but maybe for a second round pick, I could see Bones working in that regard. Maybe he could rebuild his stock around the league with the Wizards franchise. It's, let's be honest, we keep always say it, probably, projecting to be at the bottom of the standings once again. Now, with all that being said, I think the guy that sort of fits the role I'm talking about a little bit better and is also going to have his opportunity to develop this year, hopefully at the very least, is AJ Johnson. And he's going to be our topic for 10th Man Tuesday, today's edition of that. AJ Johnson, and he might be a little bit of a surprise for that topic. And remember, this is, don't get hung up on 10th man. It's a player on the Wizards or go fighting for more minutes in, with their roster. And AJ Johnson, I definitely think, is going to be battling for minutes, to be quite honest, with the logjam at the, the guard and wing positions. And honestly, I think if you brought in Bones Highland, he would be in a similar spot. Just look at the guard spots. You have CJ McCollum, Trey Johnson, and Bub Carrington playing in front of you. You also are jam packed at the wing positions. Kispert, Middleton, Will Riley, Keyshawn George, all gonna, eat up minutes and eat up playing time, eat up, some of the point production as well. And with all that being said, every time I see AJ Johnson, whether it was last year, whether it was in summer league, I feel like the more he's on the court, the better he gets. It might start off a little bit shaky, but it seems like he improves as things go along. And again, just the more he plays, and my concern for him personally is he going to get the time on the court he needs here this summer, or this NBA season, I should actually say. And just excited to kind of figure that out, and really excited as we get closer and closer to the year, as training camp comes upon us. I'm really excited to see how this rotation sort of shakes out. I think there's a bunch of options there, a bunch of different possibilities. Last thing I want to chat about today, the John Wall discussions have sort of dominated social media, dominated YouTube a little bit here this summer. Of course, retired officially. A lot of people weighing in on each side of the spectrum, whether they think his jersey should end up getting retired at Capital One Arena. John Wall has kind of weighed in on this. He says, I definitely believe it belongs there. I'm not one of those who go out there and say I'm the best wizard of all time, because I haven't accomplished certain things that other people have. I just think that what I brought to the city, and just them adopting me as their own, warrants, what he goes on to say, warrants that accomplishment. He also says, I think if it doesn't go in the rafters, I don't think the fans would appreciate it. I think they would be upset. And I second that, John, to be quite honest. I'm in the camp that thinks his jersey deserves to get retired. I think it should get hung up in those rafters. Again, I understand if you don't think that the team success was great enough in his time here in DC, but I do think that for not only what he meant to the city, but the way he just went about his business, putting this franchise on his back for about a decade that wasn't well run. Again, the article we used today referencing the organization as inept. I don't view them that way anymore, but the front office, while John Wall was here, I think that is a very fair description of them. And then also just his individual ranks, statistically. I mean, he's in just the top 5 of so many categories for the team. I think he's done enough that that jersey should get retired in Capital One Arena. I'm sure, I would love to know your comments on that down below. Again, that's been something that's really swirled and, been discussed a whole bunch here this summer. But now that John Wall, or maybe you've heard John Wall's take on this, let me know what you think on it down below. Let me know what your thoughts on any other parts of the video as well. I appreciate all the support here on the page, you guys. Keep tuning in. Make sure you've hit those like and subscribe buttons. And thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.